Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping straight into 1914 to look at the secret alliances, the Soldiers' War, and the new map of Europe. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. You always hear about the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo as the primary cause of the First World War. But really think about that for a second. How could one single, isolated diplomatic spark ignite an entire continent in a matter of weeks? Well, the answer actually isn't found in the streets of Sarajevo. It's found behind closed doors in the capitals of Europe. The truth is, the continent was already soaked in gasoline, just waiting for a match. And that gasoline? A tangled web of diplomatic secrets created by a handful of elite politicians. So the crucial point is the existence of these secret alliances. This wasn't just a friendly handshake between nations. We're talking about hidden mutual defense treaties. According to the diplomats in charge, these obligated nations to go to war if their partner was attacked. And the most terrifying front? The general public had absolutely no idea these existed. Sometimes, even other parts of their own governments were kept in the dark. It's like a giant room filled with invisible tripwires. If one nation trips, it pulls another, which pulls another, and suddenly everyone is falling. These diplomats thought they were creating a balance of power, but they actually built a doomsday machine. And man, this doomsday machine worked with breathtaking speed. On June 28th, the assassination happens. Then, for almost a month, there's just this eerie silence, a diplomatic crisis brewing completely out of the public eye. Then, boom, July 23rd, the Austrian ultimatum is delivered to Serbia. Because of those secret alliances, Russia is obligated to protect Serbia. Germany is obligated to protect Austria. France is tied to Russia. The tripwires are snapping, one by one. By August 1st, Germany declares war on Russia. By August 4th, after Germany moves through Belgium, Britain is dragged in. In just a little over a month, those hidden diplomatic signatures transformed a regional dispute into an unavoidable, chaotic global clash. The scale of what those diplomats unleashed is honestly almost incomprehensible. But to put it into perspective, look at this number, 65 million. That is the staggering total number of soldiers ultimately mobilized for this conflict. I want you to contrast the small, sterile, velvet-lined rooms of those diplomats with the massive, deafening human scale of the war. A handful of men in suits signed papers in secret, and as a direct result, 65 million young men from across the globe were handed rifles and sent off to the front lines. It's one of the most shocking disconnects between political decision-making and human consequence in world history. And this brilliantly illustrates that tragic disconnect. Diplomats and generals fully expected a swift, glorious victory decided by grand strategy and treaties. They basically envisioned an elegant 19th century chessboard. But the reality the soldiers actually faced? A prolonged, muddy stalemate of brutal survival. These guys were thrown into a 20th century meat grinder of machine guns, heavy artillery, and trench warfare. The war definitely wasn't going to be won by clever diplomacy. It was going to be endured in the mud. To truly grasp this history, we absolutely have to ground those high-level politics in the devastating reality of the trenches. This is the real conflict explained by the soldiers themselves. As one famously noted, they told us we'd be home for Christmas, but we only found mud, wire, and an endless war. When we analyze why the war started, sure, we have to look at the diplomatic secrets of 1914. But when we analyze what the war actually was, we have to listen to the soldiers. They were the ones paying the ultimate price for the secrets kept by their governments, living in unimaginable conditions. After 4 years of devastating conflict, everything shifted. Let's look at the fall of giants and how the map of Europe completely changed. Now, what's really fascinating here is how total this fragmentation actually was. The massive Austro-Hungarian Empire simply dissolved, giving birth to independent nations like Austria, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia. The Russian Empire, fractured by revolution and war, lost massive territories that became Poland, Finland, and the Baltic states. And the centuries-old Ottoman Empire completely collapsed, eventually resulting in the modern state of Turkey. We're not just talking about minor border adjustments. This was the total evaporation of centuries-old monarchies, replaced basically overnight by newly independent modern nations. The sheer scale of this geographic rewiring was entirely unprecedented. 4 major empires, including the German Empire, fell. Entirely new national borders were drawn up by the victors, often established as buffer states, just to keep large powers apart. But here is the critical takeaway. By hastily drawing these new lines straight through incredibly complex ethnic and historical regions, the diplomats of 1919 accidentally planted the very seeds for future border conflicts. The volatile groundwork for the rest of the 20th century, including World War II, was laid right there in the immediate aftermath of 1914. Let's move on and see how this builds into the political Europe of today and examine the legacy left behind. Before 1914, Europe was heavily dominated by absolute or highly centralized monarchs ruling over vast empires. Today, we're looking at a completely different picture. The continent is primarily made up of republics, constitutional monarchies, and federal states. Those top-down, secret-keeping imperial power structures of 1914 have been entirely swept away, replaced by diverse, modern democratic systems. It is a complete 180-degree turn in how power is distributed and legitimized compared to just over a century ago.
We've seen how secret alliances sparked a catastrophic war, and how shattered empires birthed the modern nations we know today. But seeing all of this forces us to ask, do those secret diplomatic lines drawn back in 1914 still silently influence the political borders and tensions of Europe today? History is never just stuck in the past. It's the invisible thread holding our present world together. Keep questioning the lines on the map,